Jim Abbott is back in the national spotlight at 58, more than 3 decades after he delivered one of the most memorable pitching performances in New York Yankees history. ESPN announced that Abbott will receive the Jimmy V Award for perseverance at the 2026 ESPYS only weeks after a documentary about his life was recognized with a Peabody Award. But where is Jim Abbott now, and what has he been doing since his final major league appearance in 1999? The answer reaches far beyond the no-hitter that made him famous. For verified entertainment updates without the rumors, subscribe to Startline Entertainment. The newest confirmed development is the ESPYS honor. ESPN selected Abbott for the Jimmy V Award for perseverance in recognition of his 10-year major league career, and the influence his example has had on athletes with limb differences. The ceremony was scheduled for July 15, 2026, at the David H. Koch Theater at Lincoln Center in New York City. At the time this package was verified, ESPN had officially announced the presentation, but a complete post-ceremony acceptance speech had not yet been published through the sources reviewed. That timing explains why Abbott is suddenly appearing in headlines again. One day before the ESPYS, he attended ESPN's Sports Humanitarian Awards in New York. Earlier in the summer, he joined director Mike Farrell and reporter Jeremy Schopp at the Peabody Awards, where Southpaw, The Life and Legacy of Jim Abbott, was honored for its examination of his career, childhood, and impact on athletes with disabilities. Publicly, Abbott's life today centers on speaking, writing, and advocacy. Since retiring from professional baseball, he has built a career addressing corporations, schools, sports organizations, and other audiences about adaptation, responsibility, and perseverance. His work has allowed him to continue discussing disability without limiting his story to the physical difference with which he was born. He has also worked on disability employment initiatives. In 2008, the U.S. Department of Labor's Office of Disability Employment Policy partnered with Major League Baseball on the PITCH campaign, short for Proving Individuals with Talent Can Help. Abbott served as the campaign's spokesman as it encouraged employers to recruit and retain workers with disabilities. That current work provides the direct answer to the question in the headline. Abbott did not disappear after baseball. He transitioned from pitching in stadiums to speaking publicly about the process he used to compete there. He also co-wrote Imperfect, An Improbable Life with journalist Tim Brown. The book was initially published electronically and as an audiobook in 2012, followed by a paperback edition in 2013. But the renewed attention around Abbott is not simply a standard athlete-turned-speaker story. The Peabody-winning documentary revisited the tension he experienced when the public treated him as a symbol before he had decided what that role meant to him. ESPN's description of Southpaw noted that Abbott sometimes struggled with the pressure and exclusion that came with constantly being identified as an inspiration. That distinction changes how his story should be told. Abbott was born without a right hand, but he did not reach professional baseball because the sport made a sentimental exception. He reached it because he developed the technique, control, and competitiveness required to face major league hitters. The National Baseball Hall of Fame's account of his scouting history notes that his athletic ability and command convinced the California Angels to select him in the first round of the 1988 draft. Abbott grew up in Flint, Michigan, and became interested in sports while still young. He learned to field by resting his glove on the end of his right arm while pitching with his left. After releasing the ball, he quickly moved the glove onto his left hand. When he fielded a ground ball, he secured the ball against the glove, removed his hand, and prepared to throw. The movement eventually became fast enough to function as part of his normal pitching delivery, rather than as a separate spectacle. The Toronto Blue Jays drafted him out of high school in the 36th round in 1985. But Abbott chose to attend the University of Michigan. At Michigan, he compiled a .268 record, received the Golden Spikes Award, and was named the Big Ten's Male Athlete of the Year in 1988. He also received the Sullivan Award as the country's leading amateur athlete. His college years included an international achievement that came before his major league debut. Abbott pitched for the United States in the baseball demonstration tournament at the 1988 Seoul Olympics. He started the final against Japan and completed the 5-3 victory that secured the tournament's gold medal for the American team. Because baseball was still a demonstration sport, the achievement is commonly described as Olympic gold even though it was not part of the official medal standings used for full Olympic events. The California Angels then selected Abbott 8th overall in the 1988 Major League Draft. What happened next remains unusual even without considering his limb difference. Abbott went directly from college and international baseball into the Angels' starting rotation without first appearing in the minor leagues. He made his major league debut on April 8, 1989, and finished his rookie season with a 1.212 record. His early career demonstrated that he could succeed at a level beyond novelty or occasional appearances. Abbott became a regular starting pitcher and finished third in American League Cy Young Award voting in 1991. That season remains important because it shows that the later no-hitter did not come from an otherwise marginal pitcher having one improbable afternoon. By the early 1990s, he had already established himself among the league's strongest starters. Before the 1993 season, the Angels traded Abbott to the New York Yankees. The move placed him in a more intense media environment and created a difficult adjustment. The documentary later explored his discomfort with expectations in New York and the emotional burden of being judged both as an athlete and as a public symbol. Then came September 4, 1993. Facing Cleveland at the original Yankee Stadium, Abbott allowed no hits over 9 innings, as New York won 4-0. He walked 5 batters and struck out 3. When the final out was recorded, catcher Matt Noakes and Abbott's teammates rushed toward the mound as the stadium reacted to the Yankees' first no-hitter in approximately a decade. The achievement became one of those baseball moments that can be summarized in one sentence but cannot be fully explained by it. Saying that a pitcher born without a right hand threw a no-hitter describes the historical distinction. It does not capture the years of repetition required to field his position, the pressure of playing in New York, or the fact that Abbott had entered that game during an uneven season. Abbott later recalled leaving the stadium and seeing people buying early newspaper editions on Manhattan street corners while cars honked around him. He described the city's reaction as one of the most cherished experiences of his life. The moment gave him a permanent place in Yankees history, but it also intensified the public expectation that he would represent something larger than himself. His career did not turn into an uninterrupted rise after the no-hitter. Abbott returned to the Angels, later pitched for the Chicago White Sox, and finished with the Milwaukee Brewers. He retired after the 1999 season with an 8.7108 record, a 4.25 earned run average, and 888 strikeouts across 263 major league games. Those numbers are significant to Abbott's own interpretation of his career. He has acknowledged that his record was not the statistical resume of a conventional Hall of Fame pitcher, but that imperfection is also central to the public message he eventually embraced. His career included elite seasons, painful losses, a historic performance, attempts to return, and the challenge of deciding how much of himself he owed to the people who saw their own possibilities in him. That complicated view is one reason Southpaw attracted critical recognition. The documentary does not treat Abbott only as the subject of an uplifting highlight reel. It examines his childhood, his family's response to his limb difference, the public attention that followed him, and his encounters with children who wanted to meet someone who had reached a level they had been told might be impossible. The Peabody organization named Southpaw a winner for what it described as a detailed and human examination of Abbott's meaning to baseball and beyond it. The production was listed among the 2025 programming winners and celebrated during the 2026 Peabody cycle. That date distinction matters. The documentary premiered in 2025, was announced as a Peabody winner in April 2026, and was represented at the awards ceremony later that spring. The documentary's conclusion also helped connect Abbott's era to the athletes who followed him. ESPN specifically cited figures including former NFL player Shaquem Griffin, U.S. soccer player Carson Pickett, and mixed martial arts fighter Nick Newell as part of the generation of limb-different athletes whose public path came after Abbott's. That does not mean Abbott alone created every opportunity those athletes received. It means his visibility changed what many viewers had already seen accomplished at the highest level. A child watching him pitch did not have to imagine whether someone with a limb difference could reach professional sports. There was already a real example, complete with victories, losses, and a career long enough to resist being dismissed as a brief publicity story. The Jimmy V Award now adds another layer to that legacy. The award is intended to recognize perseverance in the sports world, and ESPN's announcement emphasized both Abbott's playing career and his long-term effect on families and athletes. Abbott said in the statement announcing the honor that his experience was meant to demonstrate what could happen when perceived limits were not treated as final definitions of potential. There is also an unusual historical connection between Abbott and the ESPYS. His 1993 no-hitter was recognized as the show's memorable performance the following year. More than 3 decades later, the ceremony is returning to his story from a different perspective, not merely recognizing what happened during one game, but acknowledging the years of influence that followed it. Here is the start line takeaway. What changed in 2026 was not Abbott's occupation or a surprise return to professional baseball. What changed was the scale of the recognition surrounding his life after baseball. A Peabody Award validated the documentary telling of his story, while the Jimmy V Award placed his broader impact alongside his athletic accomplishments. The timing matters because Abbott's story is being reassessed with greater attention to the parts that did not fit easily into the familiar inspirational narrative. He wanted to be evaluated as a pitcher. He also understood that families with limb-different children were watching. Those two realities could coexist, but carrying both of them was not always simple. Viewers should not assume that Abbott's life after baseball has been defined by regret, disappearance, or financial hardship. No reliable source reviewed for this report supports those claims. The publicly documented picture is that he retired in 1999, became an author and professional speaker, participated in disability employment advocacy, and continued making baseball-related public appearances. It would also be misleading to describe him as a member of the National Baseball Hall of Fame. Abbott has visited Cooperstown, and museum materials preserve his career and scouting history, but he has not been elected as a Hall of Fame player. His legacy rests less on career totals than on the combination of competitive success, technical adaptation, and cultural impact. The clearest verified answer is that Jim Abbott remains active as a speaker, author, and advocate while participating in events connected to his baseball legacy. In 2025 and 2026, Southpaw returned his full story to television audiences, earned a Peabody Award, and helped set the stage for his Jimmy V recognition at the ESPYS. His no-hitter will always be the image many people remember first. Abbott standing on the Yankee Stadium mound, his teammates moving toward him as the final out became official. But the story attracting attention now is what happened after the crowd went home. He turned an imperfect career into decades of public work, and the latest honors suggest that baseball's understanding of his legacy is still expanding.